Hello friends, welcome back to English Classes Online. My name is Benjamin. Today's video is on how to use infinitives in English. This is part of our English grammar lesson series, and we are going to look at how we can use infinitives correctly in English sentences. If you are new to this channel, kindly subscribe to the channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Click on the bell icon as well so that whenever new videos are uploaded on this channel, you will be notified instantly. Without much ado, let us dive into the lesson. First, we look at the agenda for this episode. Number 1, what is an infinitive in English? 2, an infinitive as a type of verbal. 3, different forms of infinitives. And 4, how to use infinitives in sentences. What is an infinitive? That is an important question. An infinitive is a base form of a verb that is used as a noun, an adjective, or an adverb. So an infinitive is a form of a verb, and it is formed from a verb, but it does not function as a verb. Ironically, it is used as a noun, an adjective, or an adverb. An infinitive expresses an action or state of being. For example, to read expresses an action, to write, to speak, to learn. These express actions, but to be expresses a state of being, to be or not to be. Now, there is a type of infinitive that we call the zero or the bare infinitive. And this happens when the preposition to is omitted from the base form of the verb, and then it is called zero or bare infinitive. Let's look at some examples. Let's look at some specific examples of the bare or zero infinitive. Number 1, she saw him fall from the staircase. The bare infinitive here is fall because we don't have to, we only have fall. She saw him fall from the staircase. Number 2, I don't let my children watch crime movies. Again, the bare infinitive is watch without to. If I say I want to watch movies, I want to watch becomes an infinitive phrase, but the way it is used here, I don't let my children watch crime movies, watch is a bare or zero infinitive. Number 3, you had better go home immediately. The bare infinitive here is go. Number 4, she made her maid sweep the entire house. Now, let me ask you, can you identify the zero or bare infinitive in sentence number 4? Well, yes, of course. The bare infinitive is sweep. Alright, so now you have known what the zero or bare infinitive is all about. Now, let's move further and look at an infinitive as a type of verbal. You will want to know what a verbal is and what are other types of verbals, and we can look at the similarities, among other verbals and the infinitive. Now, a verbal is a verb form that does not function as a verb, but as a noun, adjective, or adverb. Now, I earlier told you that an infinitive is a form of a verb and it is derived from a verb, yet it doesn't function as a verb. Instead, it functions as a noun, as an adjective, or as an adverb. Now, there are three major types of verbals, and they are gerund. All right, gerund. Now, for example, we look at the word cooking. The is a verb form. Cooking is the ing form of a verb, and of course, it can function as a gerund. Now, a gerund is a present participle when it is used as a noun. It is a gerund. We are going to look at specific examples. Then another type of verbal is participles. And then participles can be subdivided into present participles, which incidentally is cooking, all right? The same ing form of cook, just like gerund. The difference is that a present participle is used as an adjective, while a gerund is used as a noun. Then the other type of participle is past participle. That is the ed form of the verb cooked. All right. This also is used as an adjective. Then the third type of verbal is the infinitive, which is the focus of today's lecture, and it's also derived from the verb cook, and here we have to cook. To cook is an infinitive. Cooking is a gerund. Cooking is a present participle. Cooked is a past participle. Now let's look at how we can use these three types of gerunds, three types of verbals in English sentences. Now, using gerund as a noun, we have cooking is my hobby. Now, what do we have here? We see that if we analyze this sentence, let's do sentence analysis here. And of course, I will show you how to do sentence analysis, how to analyze the sentence into the various sentence elements. Sentence elements are captured by the acronym. Sorry, this is V, the acronym VOCA. Well, let me take this time to enlighten you on this. Now, S stands for subject, V stands for verb, O stands for object, C stands for complement, and A stands for adjunct. These are the sentence elements. You will find a video I have uploaded on this channel that discusses elements of the sentence. So you will see how the various sentence elements are used and how they operate within the sentence structure. So here, cooking is used here as the subject. All right, as the subject. S, this is S. Is used as the verb. All right, as the verb. My hobby here is used as C, as complement. So we have this simple sentence has the SVC structure, subject, verb, complement. But what I want us to see here is that the word cook, which is a gerund, is functioning as a subject, showing that it is a noun. Now we can replace this subject with a noun and it will be grammatically correct. We can say tennis is a noun, or football, or music. right? Music. All right, music. Now, if you put any noun there, it will actually it will occupy that position quite relevantly. Now, the second example is about the present participle used as an adjective. And what do we have here? Well, let me try and move this. Let me move it a bit away so that, well, just enough for us to see cooking here. All right. Well, let me move it right away. All right. So, but I still need something here. Now, it is a cooking utensil. So, cooking here is the present participle. And here, cooking is used as an adjective. Now, why do we say it is used as an adjective here? Of course, this is J, adjective. Now, you know that cooking utensil, when we say it is a cooking utensil, this is a noun phrase. Utensil is a noun because it's the name of a thing. All right? It's the name of a thing, what you use to cook. All right? So now we can say it is a utensil, and then we omit cooking. And naturally, someone may ask, what type of utensil? That's the kind of question adjectives answer. What type of? Then you give an adjective to describe it. So then you can say cooking utensil because it might be a frying utensil, such as a frying pan, or a baking utensil. All right. So, but this is a cooking utensil. All right. So that shows you that the word cooking here is describing the noun utensil. Is a modifier, which essentially is what an adjective is. Then we are going to look at the third example, which is about the past participle used as an adjective as well. Now let's look at this sentence. What are the benefits of eating cooked food? Now the past participle here is cooked. Cooked. And again here it is functioning as an adjective. Now how do we know it is functioning as an adjective? Now let's again use the interrogative test, and what all we need to do is to write a natural question. We omit this participle here, and we say what are the benefits of eating food. And if somebody asks what type of food, we can say cooked food, because you have fried food, you have baked food, and so on and so forth. So cooked is an adjective because it is giving us more information about food, specifically telling us the type of food we are talking about. Then example number 4 is about the infinitive, which is the focus of our lesson today. And here an infinitive is used as a noun phrase to be specific, because to cook is my hobby. Of course, the infinitive here is to cook, and it is essentially an infinitive phrase functioning as a noun phrase in this sentence. Now, how do we know it's functioning as a noun phrase? Let's again do our sentence analysis so that we will find out the function of the infinitive in this sentence. Now, to cook is my hobby. Now, again, how do we know? Let's use the interrogative method, the interrogative test method. Now, let's say to cook is my hobby. Now, if we remove to cook and we have a dash, the question is, what is my hobby? You know, or maybe we said, is my hobby. The listener didn't quite get what we were trying to say, and they say, what is your hobby? You know, what did you say is your hobby? So the question what is usually answered by a noun or a noun phrase or a noun clause whenever you say what or who, because it's the name of something. You need to name something. All right, so to cook is essentially a noun, and here it is functioning as the subject of the sentence. The subject is the person or thing being talked about. Now, is the verb here. My hobby, again, is the complement. So we have a sentence that has the SVC structure. All right, so this is exactly what shows us that an infinitive is a verbal. A verbal is a verb form that does not function as a verb, but functions as a noun, an adjective, or an adverb. We can also say that a verbal is a non-finite verb. A non-finite verb is a verb that does not respond to changes in time, in person, or in number. All right, so you can't talk of the past tense of to cook. You cannot say to cooking. You cannot say to cooked. All right, you cannot say to will cook. No, this is non-finite. All right, and when you are talking of cooked food, again, you cannot change this. Cooked is cooked. When you say cooking here, you can't change it. You cannot say cooked is my hobby, no, or will cook is my, no. It remains unchanged. That is the nature of the verbal, and that makes it cease to function as a verb. It's now functioning as other word classes. 3 to be specific: a noun, an adjective, or an adverb. All right, so we have been able to look at verbals because we said that an infinitive is a verbal, and we had to explain what a verbal is, and we identified 3 types of verbals. Now let's move further to look at different forms of infinitives. Now we have 2 main forms of infinitives. We have the active form and we have the passive form. Then we have the 4 subclasses of infinitives. We have the simple infinitive. Of course, it can also be called the simple indefinite infinitive. Then we have the continuous infinitive, we have the perfect infinitive, and we have the perfect continuous infinitive. All right? Now let's look at the simple infinitive. Let's start with the active simple infinitive. Now, it might interest you to know that 2 of these types have both active and passive, and that is the simple and the perfect. The continuous and the perfect continuous don't have any passive form. Now let's begin with the active simple infinitive. For example, to write, the structure is to plus V1. V1 is the base form of the verb. So we have to write. The passive form is to be written, and it has the structure to plus be plus V3. V3 is the ed form of the verb. That is the past participle. All right, so then the continuous form has only the active form. So we only have the active continuous infinitive. We don't have a passive continuous infinitive as we have a passive simple infinitive. The passive simple infinitive is to be written. The active simple infinitive is to write. Now the active continuous infinitive is to be writing. So the structure is to plus be plus ving, the ing form of the verb. And so we have to be writing. The passive form of the continuous infinitive does not exist. All right? Now, the perfect infinitive has the active and the passive form. The active form is to have written, and the structure is to plus have plus victory. Then the passive perfect infinitive is to have written, All right, so what is omitted here is the word written, to have written. All right, let's try to just scribble it here, to have written. All right, just for it to be complete here. All right, to have been written. That is the passive perfect infinitive. And we have the structure to plus have plus been plus v3, which is the ed part, but in this case the en part, to have been written. All right, then the last but not the least is the perfect continuous infinitive, and it has only the active form. It doesn't have the passive form. Now, the active perfect continuous infinitive is to have been writing. Now, the structure is to plus have plus been plus ving. All right, so these are the different forms of infinitives, and we are going to look at how we can use these various forms of infinitives in meaningful English sentences. We'll take them again one by one. Let's begin with the simple indefinite infinitive. We are going to look at the active form, and then we look at the passive form. But essentially, the simple indefinite infinitive is used to talk about something in the present, something that is in the present. It is called indefinite because sometimes it refers to something that is timeless. Now, let's look at the simple present tense. For example, just to give you some insight into what the simple indefinite infinitive resembles. Now, in the simple tense, I can say I buy a new car every year. I buy. So you see, I buy. Now, when you say I buy, you see that is something that is habitual. There is no time that is actually tied to it. That habitual occurrence could be once in a year, or it could even be daily. I can say I buy food every day, so it can be every day. But then when I say I buy a new car every year, so it is really indefinite. You can't place it your finger on the specific time. It can be habitual, all right? But don't forget that the simple indefinite infinitive is not the same as the simple present tense of the verb, because the infinitive is not a verb at all. It is a verb form, but it is not behaving or functioning as a verb. Here, it is functioning as a noun. All right? So, John wants to buy a new house. To buy is the simple indefinite infinitive. And if we look at the to buy, you discover that it is functioning as a noun. Here again, you discover that it is, if we analyze the sentence, we can find out the function, the exact function that the infinitive is performing here. All right? Okay, so again, John is the subject. John is the doer of the action. Don't forget, a subject is the doer of an action in an active sentence. This is an active sentence. We are going to look at the passive indefinite infinitive which occurs in a passive sentence. The active simple indefinite infinitive occurs in an active sentence. This is an active sentence. So John is the subject, wants is the verb. Now to buy is the object, because if we say John wants and we put a dash here, what will you ask naturally? The question will be, John wants what? You know, what does John want? John wants, you know, you can say John wants a car. John wants a new house. You know, so a noun can replace to buy here. That is what shows you that this infinitive is functioning as a noun, not as a verb. Are you getting the real sense in this? Now, you see that this is an object. A house is also an object. Of course, you ought to know that we have two types of objects. We have the direct object and the indirect object. All right? John wants to buy a new house. Okay, second sentence, I love to sing songs of praise. Now, can you tell me the simple, active, simple, indefinite infinitive in sentence number 2 here? Well, I want you to look. It's a bit obvious because the color has already given it out. So that's quite correct. To sing is the active simple indefinite infinitive here. I love to sing songs of praise. Then sentence number 3, she has decided to travel to London. Now the infinitive here is to travel. Now you will notice here that certain types of verbs are used together with infinitives in these sentences. The verb want, the verb love, the verb decided. You know, these are verbs of perception. All right? Now, what do we actually learn from here? The infinitives select the types of verbs that go with them, and that is the concept of collocation. I've uploaded a video or a number of videos that highlighted or really examined how collocation operates in English grammar. Collocation refers to two or more words that are used together or that go together. You know, words keep company. When certain words are always used together, they are said to collocate with each other. And so, infinitives collocate with certain types of verbs. All right, now let's look at the passive form. The passive form, of course, the structure is 2 plus B plus B3. Now, the first example here is Junior seems to be admired by all his friends. Now, can you identify the passive indefinite, simple indefinite infinitive here? Of course, it is to be admired. Now, what makes it different from the active infinitive? Now, in the active infinitive, the subject is the doer of the action. Now let's look at sentence number 1 under active form, and we can see that the subject here is the one performing the action of wanting to buy. All right, let's now analyze the sentence 1 under passive form, and we will be able to look at the difference. You know, let's look at the difference here. Now, here the subject is Junior. Seems is the verb. All right? Junior seems to be admired. Now, of course, this is object because it's actually a receiver of the action. Now, by all his friends, this, of course, should be an adjunct. Well, we're not concerned with that. Let's look at this. Now, Junior seems to be admired. Now, the difference between this passive form and the active form is that here, the subject is the doer of the action. John wants to buy. John is the one wanting to buy, is the one going to take action. But here, the subject, Junior, is not taking the action of admiring. Junior is not the one admiring anyone. Junior is the one, to be admired, which means Junior is the receiver of the action. Junior is the receiver of the action of admiring, rather than the giver or the taker of the action. All right? So that is what makes it passive. Now let's examine the second example under passive form. Rose desires to be adored by her husband. Now you can see. Please, I want you to look at this quite well. We are not cancelling it. We are just underlining. Now, the infinitive here is to be adored. Again, Rose is not the one adoring her husband. It is she is the one that the husband is adoring, and the what is passive here is actually the infinitive. All right. To be adored is different from to adore. If we say Rose tends to adore her husband, then that would be active. But here, Rose desires to be adored, which means she wants the action, she wants the adoration to be given to her rather than she giving it to her husband. All right, so that is the what differentiates the passive form from the active form. Now, I believe we have done justice to this. That is talking about the simple indefinite. Now, let's move on to the continuous infinitive. Now, the continuous infinitive is used to talk about an action that is in progress or that is happening at the time of speaking. And don't forget, it is for working as a noun, not as a verb. Then let's first look at the active form. Of course, you understand that the continuous infinitive doesn't have a passive form, so we are just looking at the active form. And so, examples, number one, well, let me try and get something here that will help us to analyze the sentence. They seem to be quarreling. They seem to be quarreling. Now, what is the continuous infinitive here? To be quarreling. To be quarreling. You might look at it and you think that this is actually a verb or a verb phrase. No, it is not. It is functioning here as a noun. All right, let's analyze it again. They seem to be quarreling. Okay. Now, this is the subject. This is the verb. And what do we have here? All right. What do we have here? They seem to be quarreling. They seem to be quarreling. All right? They seem to be quarreling. Of course, this can be looked at as a compliment. Could we say, well, of course, And for you to know it is actually functioning as a noun, if we say the seem and we put a dash here, you will naturally ask the seem what? You know, the seem what? What do they seem to be? You know, they seem to be quarreling. They seem to be quarreling. So you can see that this is actually functioning as a noun phrase here. They seem to be quarreling. Of course, you can even start a sentence with this. This can also function as a subject. You can say to be quarreling is not a good thing for a family. To be quarreling is not a good thing for the family. So you will then ask, what is not a good thing for the family? To be quarreling. All right. So this actually is functioning as a verb, as a noun element, not as a verb. All right. So now let's look at example 2. He happened to be standing there that moment. Now the continuous infinitive here is to be standing. He happened to be standing there that moment. All right. So you can then see that this is the continuous infinitive, and you can understand that when we have the ing form coupled with to and be, that gives us the structure of the continuous infinitive. Now, example 3, I'd like to be lying on the beach right now. I'd like to be lying on the beach right now. Now, the continuous infinitive here is to be lying. Again, you can see that it behaves like a noun. If you say I'd like, someone will ask you, you would like what? You know. So it's the fact that you have lying, which is a form of a verb, doesn't make it a verb. This actually is functioning as a noun. All right. I'd like to be lying on the beach right now. Example 4, the students pretended to be reading when the teacher entered the class. Now, what is the continuous infinitive here? It is to be reading. And then, as I earlier said, the continuous infinitive is used to talk about an action that is happening or in progress at the time of speaking, you know, or the time in reference. The students pretended to be reading when the teacher entered the class. That very moment the teacher entered the class, the students pretended to be reading. Again, one other thing we notice here is the types of verbs that the continuous infinitives are used with. All right, we have seen the first one, seem, then happened, then like, pretended. All right, so the next one was expected. So these are predominantly verbs of perception, as I earlier hinted. So here, to be reading is used to talk about an action that was in progress at the time in reference when the teacher entered the class. This was the action going on. You know, they were supposed to be reading, but they only pretended that they were reading. All right. Then, example number 5, the maid was expected to be washing the clothes. Now, the continuous infinitive is to be washing. All right. As I earlier said, the continuous infinitive does not have a passive form. So we have been able to look at specific examples of how we can use the continuous infinitive in meaningful English sentences. All right? Now, so far, we have been able to understand what an infinitive is. We have looked at the various forms of infinitives. Then we have been looking at how these various types of forms of infinitives are used in English sentences. Now, let's proceed to look at the last form of the infinitive, and that is the perfect infinitive. The perfect infinitive, like the simple indefinite infinitive, has both active and passive forms. And don't forget that when we are talking of the perfect infinitive, we use the perfect infinitive to talk about a completed action, an action that has been completed. It is done and dusted at the time we are talking about it. And then we can see that it uses a selection of verbs such as intend, mean, expect, hope, pretend, seem, claim. So predominantly verbs of perception are used with infinitives. Now let's look at the active form of the perfect infinitive. Example 1, Jude pretended to have done the work. The perfect infinitive here is to have done the work. You know, to have done the work. You look at this, it resembles a verb phrase, but certainly it is not a verb. Let's again analyze this to be sure that it is really not functioning as a verb there. Let's analyze the sentence by, splitting it into its various elements or components, if you like. Now, Jude is the subject of this sentence. Pretended is the verb. To have done, of course, is the object. And the work is also another object. All right, so we have direct and indirect objects here. Jude pretended to have done the work. Again, how do we know this is functioning as a verb? As a noun. It answers the question what. If we say Jude pretended and we put a dash here, you will ask a question naturally. Jude pretended what? Pretended to have done the work. To have done the work. Now, the second one, she seems to have recovered. She seems to have recovered. All right. She seems to have recovered. Sorry, we are jumping a line. She seems to have recovered. So this is the perfect infinitive. She seems to have recovered from her illness. Now, we use the perfect infinitive to talk about a completed action. Now, here, let's look at the scenario. She refers to a person who has been sick, and probably the speaker or the writer must have seen her when she was lying down, when she was looking emaciated, when she was looking weak and all that. Those signs of being ill. But at the time of speaking, we now discover that a change has taken place. Probably this same person who has been lying on the bed unable to rise up has gotten up and is taking a walk and probably has gone to work. And then you meet her and she looks lively, and you can say she seems to have recovered from her illness. That means the recovery has taken place, seems to have taken place. So I'm drawing your attention to the fact that we use the perfect infinitive to talk about something that has been an action that has been completed. Now, example 3, Mark claims to have written a book. At the time of speaking, or at the time of Mark's claim, the writing of the book has been completed. So that is the perfect infinitive. Example 4, he is expected to have paid back the loan. To have paid is the perfect infinitive. Now let's look at the passive form. Now we have explained the difference between the passive form and the active form. Now let's analyze the first sentence under passive form and we compare it with, the first sentence under active form. Again, we break this into its components to analyze the sentence. All right, so Mary seems to have been picked for the job. Now, the passive perfect infinitive here is to have been picked. Now, this is different from the active form because in the first example, Jude is the subject. Let's analyze this passive example. Mary is the subject. Seems is the verb. To have been picked is the object. All right. So for the job, of course, is the adjunct. All right. So here, Mary seems to have been picked for the job. Now, the difference here is that in the active, the first example here is an active sentence because the subject is the one performing the action, is the doer of the action. Jude is the one doing the action of pretending to have done the work. But here, Mary seems to have been picked for the job. So here, Mary is not performing any action. Rather, an action seems to have been performed on Mary. Someone picked her for the job. She did not pick someone for the job. So you can see the difference between the passive form and the active form. We look at whether we are dealing with the active or the passive form depending on what the subject of the sentence is doing, whether is the doer of the action or the receiver of the action. Here, Mary is the receiver of the action. Under active form, Jude is the doer of the action. Example number 2, he appears to have been declared the new president. Now, the passive perfect infinitive here is to have been declared, to have been declared. Again, you discover that this person who is the subject is not the one declaring someone a new president. Rather, he is the one whom someone appears to have declared the new president. Then, example 3, she claims to have been raped. Now, to have been raped is the perfect, infinitive. And again, you look at it here, she is not the one raping someone or who has raped someone. She is the victim of the incident. She is not the offender, but the victim. She is not the doer, but the receiver of the dastardly act or the absurd action of raping. All right. So that is exactly what we have here in terms of active perfect infinitive and passive perfect infinitive. Now we are going to look at the last form of the infinitive, which is the perfect continuous infinitive. So let's now go and look at it. Perfect continuous infinitive, this has only the active form, it doesn't have the passive form. And then we look at it, the perfect continuous infinitive is used to talk about an action that has been going on for some time. Probably it started in the past and is still continuing at the time of speaking, or it started in the past and something else may have interrupted the process at the time of speaking. But let's look at examples. As we said, it only has the active form. The passive form doesn't exist at all. Example 1. Jane seems to have been working here for some time. Now, the perfect continuous infinitive is to have been working. You know, look at the scenario. You know, Jane started working somewhere, and you know, she's still working there, and someone is talking about that, and you say Jane seems to have been working here for some time. Then the second example, you pretend to have been sleeping. Well, this is a typo. You pretend to have been sleeping. To have been sleeping is the perfect continuous infinitive. You pretend to have been sleeping. You know, it's something that, you know, is that seems to have been, or that is supposed to have been going on for some time. Only the speaker discovered that the addressee only pretended to have been taking that action. Now, number 3, she is said to have been living with him since 2014. Now, the perfect continuous infinitive here is to have been living. No, of course, with him is not part of the infinitive, although is a part of its complement. All right, she's said to have been living with him. To have been living is the actual perfect continuous infinitive. And the scenario here is this young woman probably is not yet married with the man. Probably they are cohabiting, and something happens, and then tongues get wagging, and someone is now trying to say something about it. She is said to have been living with him since 2014. We is probably talking about how long the woman has been living with him. You know, probably the man may have started, you know, maltreating her, or probably may have betrayed her by saying he's not going to marry her anymore, having lived with her for such a long time. You know, these are possibilities when statements like this are made. She is said to have been living with him since 2014. All right, so these are examples of how we can use the infinitives in English. And this is where we are going to draw the curtain in today's video. We have been looking at how to use infinitives in English, and we said that this topic is part of our English grammar lesson. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you learned some lessons that will help you to use infinitives correctly in English from now onwards. If you have enjoyed today's video, click on the like button and like the video, then click on the share button and share the video with your friends and relations. If you have not subscribed to this channel, kindly do so, because the time has actually come for you to subscribe to this channel, because this is a channel where we discuss various English topics. We give you the linguistic tools. We show you how to communicate your ideas with greater effectiveness by showing you the rules of English, teaching you English grammar. Of course, we also teach English orals, how to speak English, how to articulate English sounds. But beyond the linguistic topics, we also discuss some topics that will help you to earn income, because language is a vehicle for communication, and you can use it for content creation, for digital marketing, for content writing, content marketing. We discuss these topics here, including copywriting, all right? and we share ideas with our subscribers and views on this channel concerning how you can make money online, how you can use various content creation strategies to make money, even working from the comfort of your home. All right, so if you are interested in videos like these, please do subscribe to this channel and click on the bell icon so that whenever new videos are uploaded, you will be instantly notified. If you have any questions or any comments or any suggestions or any concerns, leave your comments in the comment section. And most importantly, if you have any topic that you would want me to talk about or to discuss in subsequent videos, feel free also to mention the topics, because most of the videos I uploaded on this channel have been in direct response to requests from some of you out there. I want to thank you for being part of this video. I would like to see you in the next video. So bye bye for now, and remain blessed.